Listen, everybody, welcome to the 112th NAACP Virtual Convention. My name is Derrick Lewis, the NAACP National Field Organizer for the Youth and College Division. And thank you for joining us for our Gen Z Culture Talk. We're here for one reason only, and that's here to tell the truth, right? That's here to be honest, and that's here to be transparent. If I can do that in three ways, we need to unpack some stuff, right? We're going to have a conversation about unpacking some stuff. We're going to have a conversation about some things that we need to clean up, right? And the third thing is that we're going to be truthful and honest, is that we need help, we need support, and we need community. What I want to do is first introduce you and welcome you to the Care Room, where we're going to talk about self-care and mental health. As of the recent stigma around mental health care in the community has greatly evolved, the pandemic has brought issues of depression, anxiety to the forefront, that many of our friends and loved ones lack the resources of information and to actually address their own mental health. This talk will feature a panel, which I'll call my community, my family. We just kicked it backstage. We just broke bread and community back there, like they cool, they family, right? Just broke bread with them, and they're gonna, really talk to our Gen Z and our millennial population. Let's kind of cook that together. Gen Z and millennial population to really break down and talk about what it means for us to get into mental health. To really talk about self-care. Should we talk about what does it mean for us to be successful and also take care of ourselves, because both has to happen. So joining me first is my girl Ashley McGirt. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm blessed. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so here for this conversation on self-care and mental health. It's extremely important that we are having these conversations. So I'm happy to be here. I'm a licensed mental health therapist, founder of the Washington Therapy Fund Foundation and Cali Therapy Fund, which provides free therapy to Black people throughout the state of Washington and California. And I also have a private practice where I specialize specifically in racialized trauma.
Yep, y'all heard her. Talk that talk, Black Girl Magic, Black Girl Magic. So let's get right into our next guest. This is my brother from another mother. Next is Kosine. What it do, baby? I think we're having problems with him.
Oh, how about that? Mic check 1218, 1219. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm trying to figure out if I'm sideways or vertical, because the whole time while you were talking, I'm just listening to the chat like, but you sideways. We want to hear you, but you said, should I?
So if you take your phone and you move it sideways and then the other way, you should orient correct.
Oh, okay, so give it a boot. They go a boot. And then go right back to a boot back. Okay. Bink.
Boom.
Did it happen?
It happened. We're good.
Okay. All right. So we in this thing. Yin yang in the thing. So yeah, thank you guys for having me.
All right. And next, we have the one and the only, let me come correct, Dr. Nicolette Louissaint. How are you doing?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Nicolette Louissaint. I serve as the Executive Director of Healthcare Ready. It is a national nonprofit organization focused on disaster preparedness and response and making sure that our communities are prepared for disasters before they happen, can respond and recover. I am a PhD by training. I have a PhD in clinical pharmacology and also an engineer prior to that. So I have degrees in engineering as well as biomedical sciences.
All righty then, doctor. I got you. Brother Kosine, I know you had some technical difficulties with getting the beat, bop, boop right together.
Boop. Right, so let me do a proper intro. Yeah, all right. So, hola, mi nombre es Marcos Enrique Palacios, aka Kosine. I'm from Chicago. I'm a music producer. I'm an actor. I've got songs on your favorite artists: Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, Justin Bieber, Ludacris. You know, the list goes on. And then you're watching me right now on BET on this show called BET Presents the Encore, which has 702 in total and everybody. So yeah, coming from the entertainment music space.
Ooh. So you see, I'm in great company. I'm with good people, and if I must, I'm ready to get right into this conversation. Can we do that? Dope, dope, dope. So this is just for anyone, right? How we're going to go is that we're going to have the conversation just free for all. And then I'm going to ask a question just for each of you individually. So the first one that I have is that, like, we was just talking backstage about what does it means to unpack and just really reflect and look back and give ourselves forgiveness and grace. But one thing that I want to talk about is this pandemic that we're still in. But 2020 as a whole is that we've seen a rise in gun violence. We've seen a rise in racism and hatred. And even as we were leading up to the trial for Derrick Chauvin, around that time, around in late April, around that time, we were still police average around killing 3 people per day, which we had to look at, be still at home and right? How do people cope with their feelings and sentiments of life after being in lockdown, after being exposed to racism, police brutality, gun violence, specifically when it comes to the Black community?
Well, it's important to understand that none of these things are new for us. And now they're becoming everyday household terms: police brutality, oppression. But this has been normal day to day for most Black people. These are the norms. So now it's been exacerbated with the George Floyd protest, all of the things that have been going on, plus COVID-19. And we know that COVID-19 is disproportionately impacted among people of color, specifically Black people. So there's a number of things at play in how we have to cope and how we have to manage our mental health, especially looking at racial trauma, how racism impacts our mental health and our physical bodies. As a therapist, one way that I help our people heal is really through healing the body, because trauma takes place and is stored in our body, which is why Black people often have like high blood pressure, chronic stress related illnesses. And one of the biggest ways to move trauma out of the body is literally through movement. And I know that seems like real basic, real easy, but it works. And it's important that we have to move our bodies, especially as we're processing this stress. We're taking on racial trauma, vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, all of these traumas, while also processing grief and loss, the way that we've had to change life for almost 2 years now, being in a global pandemic. So it's really important that we're cognizant of how our bodies are responding, because we're resilient people. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this is normal. So it'll be like, this is normal for us to see this. We've been seeing police brutality. George Floyd was not the first person to be choked to death. Eric Garner, the list goes on, even from those people who did not make mainstream media that we don't talk about. So because it becomes so normalized for us, our bodies still take on that trauma, and we have to really heal our bodies.
I also think it's important to realize that just because we are not dying from it does not mean that we are not being impacted. So oftentimes when we think about what Black people in particular have been through in this country, but even across the diaspora, we think about it from the vantage point of like, we've survived so much, but we don't often pause and say, yes, but at what cost? At what cost to our physical health? At what cost to our mental health? At what cost to the trauma that is literally in our bodies that is being passed down in different ways, generation to generation? So while we are resilient, we should not be falling back on that resilience in ways that take away from our health. And I think that's the other piece of it, is understanding that just because we can survive things, or just because we can hold on to things and not ask for much or not demand more from government or from society, doesn't mean we should have to.
And the reality is we are not surviving. It may look like survival on the surface, but we're not. When we look at adverse childhood experiences and the amount of trauma that we experience, you can literally score it. And there's studies and research that shows when you have an ACE score of 6 or higher, your mortality rate is literally decreased by 20 years. And the majority of Black people throughout the diaspora have an ACE score of 6 or higher, which means our mortality rate is being shortened. And when you look at the mortality rates of the Black population, we're dying from preventable diseases that can literally be attributed to racism. When you look at chronic stress-related illnesses, because we are experiencing things that no other population has to endure, and it's literally killing us.
Right. And one thing that I like is that a few things that you guys said is that even when we do take on like this trauma and like this cloud that we may go through, right, is that one thing that I like Ashley says that like we got to move, right? I majored in body, study of body and movement, and one thing was that like the best medicine that you can give your body is exercise, right? How do you move? How can you incorporate different type of best practices when it comes to self-care, right? What does that look like? Is it yoga? Right? Are you riding a bike? Are you making sure that you're at least clearing your mind to where you're not focusing or just thinking about that one thing that could be hindering you back? And then another thing is that Dr. Nicolette said was like, this got to be holistic. this has to be holistic. We can't just talk about like, hey, like, yeah, like we understand our own strength, right? But our strength doesn't have to be like that. So how do we really reimagine and unpack what does a new world and a new way of living look like for us being Black in America? And
I can definitely say one of the first things you can do is look at moving your body and exercise as health insurance. You know what I mean? We look at health insurance like just something that you pay out the whole time. No. Health insurance is exactly what the young lady just said, moving your bodies, and that's how I chop it up when I look at my gym membership expense. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, you know what, this is more me investing in myself, especially as an entertainer and TV personality. You got to show up, you know what I mean, and be on camera and sometimes move and act. I got to play, keys, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so also I find that as sneak meditation too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see it as sneak meditation. I'm in the gym and sometimes you just kind of get lost in the process. You know what I mean? Also, shifting gears is having faith. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of us have gotten frustrated with the church, but this is not me talking about the church. This is me talking about the people, the inside, yourself. You know what I mean? And continuing to just educate yourself on what's going on. Like, it's written that we were going to be up against this type of opposition. You know what I mean? It told us that it was happening. You know what I mean? And so for me, I'm not confused when I see racism. I'm not confused. I'm not saying why. I know. You know what I mean? I know what time it is out there. And so, just really keeping that level of faith, and then also understanding community. That if you are somebody that is figuring it out, you do kind of got your feet up under you, help somebody. It's not enough for you to just be okay. It's not enough. We got to look at our families. We got to look at our children. We got to look at mom and dad. When we look at mom and dad didn't have the internet. We got the whole internet to research all kind of stuff. So, we got to help each other.
Right. That's true. And in a sense that when we talk about helping each other, Ashley, like I have a question for you. Like, as a psychologist, I'm pretty much sure like are familiar with Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? And in the sense of like the importance of psychological needs and being in a sense of belonging and accomplishment. Can you explain like the importance of mental health in conjunction with a good environment? Like, why is that necessary?
It's extremely important because the environment goes hand in hand with the psyche. There's things like environmental racism that impacts our psyche. Sunlight, if you don't have enough sunlight, it impacts your mood. Seasonal affective disorder. So when it starts to get darker earlier, it's colder outside, or if you live in an environment, I'm a Seattle native, so it rains here a lot. And there are many people here who suffer from extreme bouts of depression because it is often colder here. It's raining, things like that. So all of that impacts our mood and how we show up, our behaviors, the people that you're around. So when we think about environment and mental health, we're often thinking about, okay, the pollution, the plants, the lights, but it's also who is around you. Who are the people that are near you? Because that energy is feeding itself. So I always ask my clients, look at your phone. Who are the last 5 individuals that you text? Who are the last 5 people that you had a phone call with? Because that is part of your environment and that energy is feeding you. Are these people who are negative, Debbie Downers? Are they constantly asking you for things? Are they feeding your soul? Are they lifting you up? Are they motivating you? How is that impacting you? So when we think about environment, we have to think about our whole environment, the whole picture. And there's lots of research, lots of data. I'm a researcher, so I know oftentimes people are like, well, what's the evidence-based research behind this? There's plenty of it out there that literally shows your plants, your sunlight, all of this has an impact on how you show up in this world. And if you do live in an environment like me, where it's colder, it's often darker, you can invest in things like light therapy so that you can bring light in, and that'll help boost your immune system, help boost your mood. All of these things that will help improve your mental health.
And if I could just add into that, from one of the things that we talk about often, and we even have already raised it in this conversation, is thinking about the toll of racism, right? And oftentimes we talk about that in abstract, and that may mean different things to us individually or collectively. But when you think about the impact of racism on your environment and the relationship that your health has to your environment, this is also systemically at play. Where you live, where we live in this country, is a function of racism. How our communities were formed, how some of our communities were displaced and broken up and moved into other communities. But I'll make it even more granular, how close you may be to healthy food. So as we're talking about moving our bodies, the other part of that is having the ability, having the freedom to make choices about the foods that you're eating. But let's be honest about it. If you have to drive and pay twice as much for healthier food, and you don't have access to a car consistently, and Uber and Lyft are luxuries that you cannot consistently afford, but the corner store is there. I'm from Brooklyn, so we used to have what we call the quarter waters, right? And there was sugar, food coloring, and water, right? There's no nutritional value, but a quarter water was a quarter. A bottle of water was not. I could get Sour Power for 5 cents. A salad cost $10. How can we make decisions that allow for us to be in our environment, be fully in our environment, feel loved and safe in our environment, and have options to be healthy? And so I just want to be honest about the fact that as we think this through and as we walk it out, it is going to be harder for some of us in our communities to both stay connected to the communities where we grew up, but also understand of racism when we look around. There aren't always healthy options for us.
We gotta put gardens in the hood ASAP. That's gotta be on everybody's agenda. Hey, respected dignitary, if you don't put a garden in our hood, you got all this, because what's the checks that they give us? Stimulus. I need my stimulus check, yeah. Like, America truly, I'm talking about shave my eyebrows off when we ain't never had no money for nothing, no money for no black people in reparations. But as soon as the pandemic hit, I need my stimulus check. You got all of that. So we know y'all got some money. You know that we need gardens in the hood. You know what I mean? So that we can all just walk up the block. You know what I'm saying? Or what do they do? What do they call it when the fresh market, the market? We know that that's a basic level that we need in our communities. All of the dignitaries that's in there, let's get to work. You know what I mean? Let's get to work.
Yeah. And that's really when we talk about, because what this is access, right? And when we don't have the access to certain things, of course, what we see is what we're going to indulge in and things of that sort. That even goes to how tobacco is plastered in our Black communities. We have alcohol stores plastered. If you go to another area that may have the medium income may be, I don't know, maybe 100,000, you may be seeing salads advertised or fruit or fresh produce. So things we have to address is that some of the areas that we connect and we go back home to, even my community, it's a food swamp, right? And we may have McDonald's and these fast food restaurants, right? But we have to understand, like you say, have the decision of choice to have access to something better. what I want to do next is go back to my brother Kosine, right, man? You are somebody who is very respected in your field when it comes to music, when it comes to art, and when it comes to entertainment, right? This ain't no 9 to 5, right? I'll consider something to be like project based. I'm working on something, I'm grinding on it until I'm satisfied, whenever that may be. And I know that artists are sensitive about their work, right? Talk to
Super sensitive.
implement this work-life balance. Like, how did you learn? How did you implement this, and when did you do it?
It came from burnout, so I had a quote that I used to say. I used to say it like I just knew what I was talking about. Sleep ain't really sleep when you're constantly dreaming of waking up the world, right? Professor Costa. This is what happens when you give a 23-year-old a job as a professor, is they just be spelling themselves. So 2015, I'm nominated for Rap Song of the Year, Nicki Minaj, Anaconda. When I pick up my phone, everything is a yes. And I was completely unfulfilled. My relationships, personally, business, everything. I was like having a pre-midlife crisis. Like, wait, but I'm nominated for the Grammys. You know what I'm saying? So I moved back to Chicago, and through my family and through my faith, I was able to kind of put it back together. My family doesn't care about Kosine. They love Marcos. So they were happy that I was back home. Oh, Marco, let me make you some arroz con pollo. That's what you need. You need some arroz. I'm gonna make your favorites, Marco. You know what I'm saying? And they put that love back on me. You know what I mean? In Hollywood, there's not that much culture out here. So they put that love on me. Then I started to really, a couple years later, I started to really read the word of the Most High from just a chill spot, without the pressure of church, without the pressure, and with some of my homies. And I was looking at the commandments, and it say, one day take off. On the seventh day he rested to observe the Sabbath. And so I'm thinking about me and burning out, and I'm thinking about, did I ever just make sure? Was I ever just really thinking like, and I also moved it to Saturday instead of Sunday, right? So I was like, let me just try to be mindful of that. And then I got in a relationship, you know what I'm saying? And we have a child, you know what I mean? So like now it's easier, for me because I'm not in these streets, you know what I'm saying, going crazy, to just take a day and just chill out with the fam. And then I've been looking at my life since I adjusted it and added that to it. And bruh, it's a treat. I kind of look forward to it. You know what I'm saying? And I can tell people like, yeah, don't, Saturday, like if it gets hectic, I have to move around. We still grinding. We ain't to the point where we just don't leave the house ever, right? But I can tell you when I do get to that point and the coin is there, you ain't gonna be able to find me. I might start taking 2 days off. You know what I'm saying? Child, please.
I love that. Rest is so important. I'm a researcher, so I was just looking at some research where they had exhumed the bodies of slaves. And when they looked at these bodies, the muscle had literally detached itself from the bone. Because as you know, slaves aren't getting a day off. They're not getting any breaks. They literally people, and we're still literally working ourselves to the bone. And we often have this misconception, like, I'll sleep when I die, or if I need to make money, all of these different things, but our body needs rest. And I would hate to see later on that when our bodies are exhumed, the muscles are detached, just as our ancestors were, who legally weren't given any breaks, any days off, yet we're doing this to ourselves. And it's not healthy and it's not okay. I love to sleep. I love naps. I'll take 2, 3, 4 days off, as many as I can. So I love hearing you say that. And if anything is taken from this, I really hope it's that rest. That is part of your self-care. That is part of our resistance. I really love the nap ministry that really talks about how we revolutionize ourselves through sleep and through rest, because we were not allowed that.
So I will say.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Miss. Go ahead, Doctor. Go ahead.
Kosine, you got it.
Okay.
What do y'all know?
This is because it's a plug, but it's the truth at the same time. The end title of my movie Truth Serum, which accompanied my debut EP, which came out this year in May. It's called Rest to Live. And I wrote that song after I left the doctor one day, the heart doctor. And he was telling me about how I can help my heart. And that was what Ashley just said, sleeping. And so as a musician and as an artist, when I have a life gem like that, I hide it in my music. You know what I mean? I go put it right in the song. And I wrote a song called Rest to Live. That is the end title of the movie. So when you leave here, you go watch Truth Serum. Let that bless you, because I make sure to put healing in the music that Kosine makes. That's it, doctor. That was just a little. That was it, doctor.
No, you got it. Like I said,
We needed that. We needed that.
We did, because when you think about it, so I will say this: I have the type of career where I have to go, and what I've learned over the years is that while I do have to churn, I don't always have to churn. And so my gift to myself is, when we are in a disaster, yes, there's no stopping. But when we are not, my Saturdays and my Sundays are mine. They're not ours, they are mine. And that is my choice. But everything in between, in order for me to be my best self, and I really didn't fully understand this, and I thought that rest was a luxury. It was something that when you finally made it, you could take the nap or take the break or have the vacation. And what I've realized is that at some point, I don't like the version of me that shows up when I don't have those things, when I don't get to exercise. I have my exercise on my calendar, because what I've learned from a lot of my colleagues and my friends who are older, who are white, who have made it to other levels and have positions of power where they can say, I'm going to play tennis at 1:00 on a Tuesday and nobody's going to challenge it, is that however they get their job done, they're getting it done. So they need to make sure that they're doing it in a way that works for them. So yeah, I do schedule naps now. And I schedule my 20 minutes because I need it. And I schedule my workout because I need it. And I protect my time, because to me, that's freedom. When we're talking about actually working towards being free and being collectively free, to me, freedom is being in a position where people can say, I need rest, and choose rest. It's not glamorizing, I've been grinding and I only slept for 2 hours. It's glamorizing, you know what? I gave that thing my best 6.5 hours, and then I took the only nap for a solid 2.5. Like, to me, that's freedom, is saying that we are not valued by how we devalue ourselves by churning and working and not stopping and not resting. That's what we need to be going towards, and that's what we need to be glorifying as a community, so that we can all survive and live to actually celebrate our successes and all of our accomplishments. Because the way we're going, we're not going to make it.
Oh, that is good. That's like that's because, like, unpacking all of that, like, from, like, coming from each of you, like, first, like, you have to be self-aware, right? First, you have to be self-aware of, like, what is going on with me internally. But with that, taking the grace, understanding that, yes, like, my body needs grace. Yes, I understand that we have motivational speakers that they say, like, hey, like, you got 24 hours in a day. Yes, I do have 24 hours in a day, and I may sleep none of them hours, right? Even what does that mean? Like, how do I comfort, right? You said, like, you talking about playing tennis at 2:00 on a Tuesday. I'm thinking about my Tuesday and how many meetings I have set up, and, like, how do you work and redefine freedom, as you just said, being in a position where you can say, I need rest, and choose that, right? Like, I can choose rest at 3:00 Eastern Standard Time, and I'm cool with that. Cool, right? So, like, this is good. I'm excited.
Yes, just to add a little bit of salt on that, right? But pink Himalayan salt, right? It's really an outward expression of how you love yourself, right? And we know that you're supposed to love others the way you love yourself.
Talk about it.
But if you don't love yourself enough, like, sometimes people got to just take this moment. I know this is where they're going to be like, Coach, you get on my nerves, right? But sometimes if you one of the people where you're in that space where, like, man, why don't nobody like me? Why I'm always getting on everybody's nerves? And it's just like, man, well, I would suggest looking at how you love yourself, because people are doing a lot of projecting nowadays. Because of that, that pandemic, we started to talk and really communicate on another level. And now wisdom is allowing us to see the projections. Like I love old Talladega Nights when he was like, "Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't put that on me." You know what I'm saying? So check that.
And it's so important for us to really evaluate how many things we have going on. You just mentioned how many meetings you have at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. So how many things are we putting on our plate, and what ways can we reduce our mental load? I'm always telling people, like, invest in paper plates for a season so you don't have to constantly wash the dishes. Use a protective style. I got my hair in braids right now because I am not about to be taking the time to do my hair every single morning. So how can you get pieces of your time back throughout your day? And just for a season, because nobody's about to keep these braids in for a year or 6 months, whatever the case may be. But temporarily, how can you get more of your time back? So these were little things that I did during the season so that, one, I didn't have to constantly wash the dishes all the time. I don't have to do my hair every day. You want to do basic hygiene, take a shower, do all that good stuff. But what other things can you take off of your plate, or what can you delegate? Because we fail to realize how many people are in our corner and how many people are willing to step up and take things off of our plate, or oftentimes we have difficulty, delegating tasks. We want to control everything, and then we're creating an immense amount of work. Yet you have staff who can do this, or you have people in your corner who can do X, Y, and Z. So how can you lessen your plate and improve your mental health?
Right, and as you just mentioned, like we're essentially balancing like all these different competing interests, right? How do we narrow that down? How do we understand, like, hey, my plate is only about this big, right? I got things I can't handle the 6. That's not me, right? So when we talk about balancing multiple competing interests, right, and being honest, Black people, it's because we don't live single life issues, right? When we talk about, like, if we in school and we have our own apartment, I got to think about how can I maintain my grades because I'm a first generation college student. How can I make sure that the job that pays me $12 an hour, we still have to advocate for $17 at the minimum wage. But how can I make sure that the $12 hour job who's paying me can make sure that I still have enough sustainability to pay for my rent? Better yet, to make sure that I have food on my plate, right? So when we talk about all that, what can young people do to prioritize themselves when it comes to care, especially when it comes to the ramifications of a global pandemic? And this is really for Dr. Nicolette. Like, what can we do to make sure that this happens?
Sure. And I think the other thing about it is when you're in college, at least in my experience, you're also dealing with your family and the needs of your family as well. So step one is being realistic. So, we're talking about, playing tennis and vacations and whatever like that. Like, let's start with, can there be 30 minutes of my day that are dedicated to what I need in that moment, which forces you to actually stop and say, what do I need? To me, a big part of self-care is discipline. So as Ashley was talking about hair, I started laughing because there are people who only know me in twists and they're like, I have no idea if you have hair underneath here or not. I don't know what's going on because I have never seen you not with twists. And the reason for that is my discipline is in my morning. I'm really not a morning person. And so I have to build a routine. And my routine in this moment, and this moment has been like the last 2 years, does not allow for me to prioritize doing my hair. So how do you build in a discipline that says, I need a routine? And that routine is not to be too rigid on myself. That routine is actually to give me the freedom to say the things that need to get done can get done, and the rest of that time is mine. And that discipline allows you to think about where you're spending your time, but also what you're absorbing. So when we talk about 2020 and the pandemic happened. We dealt with the killing of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. And that's what we dealt with collectively. Imagine what people dealt with individually on top of that, right? Family crises, losing people you love to COVID, being separated from people you love and not being able to see them. And so again, that discipline is, maybe you don't plug into Instagram all day. Maybe you tune out a TikTok for a minute because at some point, everybody's talking about the same thing and it's too much. Right? So that's a part, to me, that's a part of discipline, is being able to say, can you take those 15, those 30 minutes and say, what do I need today? And if I don't know, how do I continue to stay attuned to myself to say, maybe today I do need a burger and fries. Maybe tomorrow I need a workout and a salad. And to call my mom and have just a conversation with somebody who loves me for an hour. But it's not always the big things. It's actually, to me, it's a lot of small things that add up to the big steps.
That's it. And production team that's only, we got 5 minutes, so that's basically like wrap up. So guys, please, what we're gonna do is what I want to do is get at least 1 minute closing remarks from each of you, and then we'll close out our panel. So first, we can go with my girl Ashley.
Don't put me on the spot. Closing remarks. I just want everyone to know it's okay not to be okay. Invest in your mental health. You have to, and really find ways to care for self. And I'm talking about true self-care. It has to be all about you. Make sure it's something that brings you joy and it's nourishing your mind, your body, and your spirit, because too often we have a misconception about self-care. We were talking about hair earlier, and in working with predominantly Black people, oftentimes my clients are telling me their self-care is getting their hair and their nails done. No, that's basic hygiene. Getting my hair done does not feel good. Having these braids is a 5-hour job. Like, it's a lot of work. That to me isn't self-care. That's basic hygiene. It should really be something that is joyful. It's nourishing you. And take your naps, because I'm literally about to take a nap probably after I get off this. I don't know. I'm going to chill out, relax, and, find a therapist. Invest in a good therapist. It is so, so important. And if you can't find one within your local community right now, since we're all working virtually, expand your zip code, expand your search, and really do what you need to do. And I'm happy to be here today. If you want to check in with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms at Therapy with Ash. And again, just do what you need to do to make sure you're well and you're here and you're living a long, fulfilling life.
Thank you to my soul sister Ashley. Let's go to Dr. Nicolette with closing remarks.
Thank you so much for having me. And Derrick, thank you for your leadership. Really admire the way that you are leading in this moment. Closing remarks, everything that Ash said, I would say in addition to that, loving yourself fully is a radical act. Choosing yourself fully is the fullest expression of freedom that I can imagine. So making sure that in all of the things that you do, large and small, that you are able to both love yourself and choose yourself. And that is community uplift.
In unity, we found our strength. We have to have the community. We have to understand, who are we? Who am I? And what do I love, and what pours into that? Last but not least, our brother Kosine.
We are definitely the Most High's chosen people. Just to piggyback that off, you are God's favorite. Just so you know, it is a love story to you specifically. Second to everybody here, you, Derrick. I have to piggyback what sister doctor said, bro. You did an incredible job, man. Your wrap ups, your summarizing. I'm reading a book right now called The Wisdom of Listening. And what you did was, man, you showed us what that looks like. Ashley, thank you so much as well. I say make a plan. You know what I mean? If you want different results, you gotta change what you're doing. So today, right now as we're wrapping up, write down what self-love looks like for yourself moving forward. What does that look like? After all the information you got, what does the plan look like? Then the plan to your calendar. I've heard people mention calendar a few times today. Take it to your calendar and lock it in. Second, joy is a fruit of the spirit. You know what I'm saying? So pay attention to those around you they don't never have no joy. There's something to that. That ain't right. You know what I'm saying? And so, and yourself as well. Like, if you have an opportunity to make the choice to be joyful, turn up. You know what I'm saying? Turn up. This is kind of like how I'm able to do my job because they know what time it is when Kosine show up. Oh man, it's party time. You about to see and feel what the joy of the Most High look like. He gave us health. My kids is healthy. You know what I'm saying? Uh, my, you know, my baby, she didn't made lunch, so I'm gonna go eat. You know what I'm saying? So count your blessings. Just stop for a second and count your blessings. You know what I mean? Be the change. Be the energy you want the energy to be. And that's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents.
Appreciate that, man. This has been a great conversation. One thing that I want to say to definitely wrap up is that one thing that we all heard from this is self-care, right? And understanding what self-care means is that, you know, sometimes we understand that we're in the game, we may be playing basketball or whatever, and coach pulls us out the game. And sometimes we have an attitude about that, but sometimes we find restoration and rest in the bench, riding on the bench. So let me ride the bench, right? Go home, take a nap. Go take the nap, go beyond basic hygiene. That's what girl Ashley said, and get into some real radical self-care and some love. The second thing is that we need a need for mental health resources for Black students, right? This means Black therapists. This means the opportunity to share and have conversations like this. This means to make sure that we are also teaching proper work-life balance. And to make sure that if we are going to teach proper work-life balance, that means we have strong and healthier young people. And then last but not least, we understand that the current administration has committed X amount of dollars, a certain amount of dollars when it comes to mental health resources. We need to make sure that those those funds that are allocated gets to the Black community, that specifically that it gets to our Black youth. So thank you. I've enjoyed this conversation. We have broke bread. I've enjoyed y'all. Like y'all my family. So let's make sure that we exchange contact information for sure. For those of you who are back at home, appreciate you for taking a view into our conversation, and we appreciate y'all in peace. Have a good afternoon.
Hey.